yeah, shortly after that, started receiving quite a few other uploads from around the world.
So who's that?
That's Javid. He was one of the three of us that started the site. There's also Steve Chen. And unfortunately, Javid decided to leave the company before we actually launched the service or had a chance to raise funding. He decided to go back to school to Stanford. It's really then me and Steve's journey after that, after raising the funds and then kind of riding this wave of video and trying to deal with the growth and eventually ending up at Google.
You grew up in Pennsylvania, Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
That's
you
correct.
studied design there.
Yes.
What kind of kid were you growing up?
I wouldn't say I was the most academic child growing up, but I was curious about things. I really enjoyed art, and for me, kind of just growing up, kind of dabbling, I guess. You don't necessarily need to be an engineer to have a startup. You just have to have be someone with ideas. And you have to follow through with kind of creating something that others can relate to. And so for me, art and startups aren't too different.
So how did you end up in Silicon Valley?
I read about a small startup beaming money through Palm Pilots. At the time, the company was called Config, and they had a Palm Pilot product called PayPal. I just recently graduated from college. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. So I was sitting at home and simply wrote them an email because on their website they said they were looking for a web designer. And so I had the design background. Luckily enough for me, they responded. And about a week later, I was out here in Silicon Valley working for them.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history, but I needed to find a place to live. That was the first challenge for me. When I moved out here in the summer of '99, you couldn't even find a place to live, so I had to sleep on someone's floor.
Because there were so many people here coming for the Silicon Valley Gold Rush.
During the dot-com boom.
Now, as I understand it, you designed the very first PayPal logo that they still use to this day? Is that correct?
I think they've changed it over the years, but yes, I was responsible for logo design, website design, the app.
But do you see your design in the PayPal logo today? I mean, like, it's an iteration on what you did.
Yes.
What you did, right?
Yes,
it is.
Of course.
What sort of determined how everyone in the PayPal mafia ended up going their separate ways, and how did you and Steve end up together?
After I left PayPal, I'd meet up with Steve and a few other engineers, and we'd meet for coffee on University Avenue, and everyone had, at that time, a digital camera that had a video mode. This was sort of right before cameras took off in cell phones, but people had video files on their desktop that they couldn't share, including ourselves. How would we make it as easy as sending an email? So that's really what inspired us.
This was 2005, before smartphones, really, before high-speed internet was the norm.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult was it to get this off the ground?
I think because we knew nothing about video, we weren't scared about getting into it. I think the same thing with PayPal and payments. I think if we realized how much fraud and how many other things, hoops we'd have to jump through in terms of the finance industry, probably would have never started the project. The same with video, dealing with bandwidth and hosting and streaming issues. So because of that, we were able to hit kind of the video market just at the right time, when people were getting broadband, when people were getting the devices in their hands. And we were, I guess, in the right place at the right time.
You sold to Google the next year, right? So it was only like 18 months.
Yes, 18 months.
For $1.65 billion.
It was a rocket ship, and it continued to be kind of this journey, that where we were just kind of holding on for our lives. Even after we became part of Google, if anything, things just accelerated from there. Obviously, we had more resources, but at the time we sold, we only had 67 people within the company. We had probably 2 or 3 engineers, IT guys that would run around the country maintaining our 3 data centers. At the time, we didn't have the luxury of just plugging into Amazon Web Services or something. You actually have to go out and build your own machines. And beyond that, we were threatening basically basically to both sides of the industry, both the internet industry, the Googles, the Yahoos, and the Microsoft want to kind of control, continue to retain their control, but then you also have the media world, traditional media world, the studios, the labels, and others wanting to kind of role of distribution. So they were attacking us, accusing us of not doing the right things around copyright, when in reality we're building all the tools, more tools than any of our competitors, and more policies from day one than anyone else to deal with all of these problems, and actually eventually create solutions for them where they could monetize this. The music industry earns billions of dollars off of YouTube on an annual basis now. But with all of these people looking at us, and for us just struggling to kind of keep things up and running, we had no other choice really at the end of the day to be acquired by someone. And for us, we were lucky enough to kind of be acquired by Google, who in my mind kind of took a chance on us. And that really, YouTube probably wouldn't be here today or what it is today without their support. So I'm really thankful that we ended up there.
So you felt you had to sell?
Oh yeah, I have no doubt that if we tried to have go alone, that we would have been eventually crushed by lawsuits or just not being able to scale. We would have loved to have remained independent. We wanted to see what we could do to kind of go IPO and remain independent, but other forces didn't allow us to do so.
So what was it like transitioning over to Google?
One of the things that Larry and Sergey, and especially Eric, told us when they first met us, they said, continue to run this yourself, continue your culture. We just care about growth, and really just let us know if anyone gets in your way.
There was always a question about how YouTube was going to make money. What was so hard about it? Now, until more recently, there was always a question about how YouTube was going to make money. What was so hard about it? What was so hard about building it into a business? I
think people were just internally or even externally looking for, this big answer. This there has to be something other than just another video on top of a video. At the end of the day, I think it is just all about targeting. It's all about providing choice to the viewer, and there's going to be more than enough ways to monetize the site just looking at traditional means of advertising. But people are always looking for this bigger answer, and I still think they continue to this day.
You stepped down as CEO in 2010. Why did you leave?
I just wanted new challenges, and I just felt like YouTube was in great hands, and that we had really seen things through as a business. That there were all these doubts when they first acquired us, but I felt by the time I left that a lot of those doubts were answered, and that it really had turned into a true business